Welcome to Dev's Advocate, a podcast by indie game developers for indie game developers. My name is Eric.
And my name's Anthony, and thank you for joining us on our first episode ever. Here we talk to indie game developers about indie game development. We ourselves are two indie game developers that you may have never heard of, but we hope to change that.
Yeah.
Eric, how do we know each other?
We know each other from post-secondary school.
That's right. At IADT, we studied video game design about 10 or 12 years ago.
12 years ago now, we graduated, yeah. Since then, a lot has changed in the video game industry.
Yeah, there's this thing called Unity and Unreal. No longer do you have to write your own rendering engine from scratch.
Yeah. Is Ogre even still around anymore?
Probably is, but I hope that kids these days are using something else.
Yeah. When we were going to school, basically they were, with mixed results, they were trying to prep us for the life of, AAA development, where you're a cog in a machine, sort of.
Yeah, and I think what happened is none of us really specialized. We all learned every kind of tool of the trade and became masters of none.
Right. But now that kind of stuff can be helpful. Yeah, it can be helpful now that there's so many smaller companies and indie, like solo developers out there.
Exactly. So guys like you and me can make games pretty much from scratch. And speaking of, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I'm working on a 2D platformer called Johnny Pompadouri in... Hey, Ma, I think I'm having a nightmare.
I love that. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's basically inspired by, your classic mascot platformers like Super Mario Bros. 3. But specifically, it is Halloween and horror themed. It's linear. It does have that kind of philosophy of like just fast-paced fun, right? I'm not trying to make Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, and I've been watching you work on this for at least a year, and the art is just fantastic. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to do something with personality. I was just doodling characters, and I drew this little guy with a big giant pompadour, and I was like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is my Mario.
Yeah, you totally nailed the character. Do you find that art is your strong point?
You know what? That's such people always ask me that. That's such a tough question because like gameplay programming is probably the thing I'm most confident at, is like getting that game feel down and like making sure that the jump physics are just perfect enough that it feels good. Like I feel confident doing that stuff, but I love doing art. I love doing everything.
Awesome. Can't wait to play it. When do you think you're releasing it?
Hopefully this year. Yeah, I made a conscious decision to make it a shorter term project. Yeah.
And it's something you can just keep adding on to.
Mm-hmm. So what are you working on?
Well, for about 3 or 4 years now, on and off, and through many different iterations, another colleague of ours, he also went to school with us, we've been working on a game called Battle Runes of the Viking Gods, just to fit in with all the Viking themes these days. So this is a game inspired by Scrabble. The original idea was, let's have a Scrabble board, but instead of English letters, we have Viking runes, and we can make basically English words out of Viking runes. And so we built this game, and we could play it, but when we got other people to play it, they're like, hey, I don't speak Viking, and they couldn't really play it. So it wasn't really that fun. So what we've done is pivot, and we've changed the concept to a multiplayer game, and now it's a game of attrition. So you start it with a blank board, kind of like a chessboard, and you get a hand of runes.
Okay.
And your goal is to fill up the board with as many runes as possible, trying to beat out your enemy. And there's all these different rules, like you can destroy their runes or you can stack your runes.
Cool. And what are your general ambitions for it?
Honestly, if people play the game, I think we've achieved the game designer's goal. Monetizing is cool, and making a career, that's the dream.
Right.
But to see like 100 people at a time or 1,000 people at a time playing your game, it's just everything.
Now, did the mechanics greatly change? Because when the first time I played it, I remember you had to like stack the runes on top of each other. And
oh yeah, so like that was totally an accident. I was just trying to program the ability to drag and drop the runes on the board, and then by accident, what happened was you could place runes on top of each other, and the stack of runes could just grow infinitely until the physics engine took over and the
I
runes
remember
fell
that.
over.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is hilarious. I need to like make this part of the game. It's just so funny and like kind of unique. So we integrated it.
Hmm.
Now if you stack 3 runes on top of each other, that tile of the board is locked and no longer in play.
Okay, that's cool. So it's not just Scrabble.
Yeah.
It has its own set of rules and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much no longer Scrabble, really.
Very cool.
So, Eric, what are our goals with this podcast?
Just I felt like there was a lot of very passionate indie developers out there. I mean, myself included, who weren't really being given a voice necessarily. And so I wanted to, and I mean, I follow a lot of these guys on Twitter, and I've been trying to make a lot of contacts, and they were all always, uploading screenshots and uh, trying to get their work featured. But but it's hard to network like that because like you can follow 1,000 people, but um, then there's always that anxiety about like making actual contacts out of them and approaching somebody and talking to them, right? Uh, but I feel like with a podcast, if just by interviewing these developers, we and the rest of the world can get to know so much better who they are, what they're doing, and um, bring that human aspect to a project that somebody might be following.
Right. So we're basically like a platform for indie game devs to come and talk about their game and talk about their story and the ups and downs, good and bad, their progress, and just share with
Right.
us.
And at the same time, talk shop with them a little bit, right? Because we're all, I think, I mean, I can't imagine too many indie developers who don't love the medium of video games,
Yeah, and I think that's true with probably any kind of entertainment medium.
Yeah, most people don't go into it going, all right, I'm gonna be rich doing this.
Yeah,
Everybody hopes that their games, I think will be seen and played and bought, and I think a lot of these people deserve it, you know.
yeah. And there's some games that you've probably played that just never saw the turnout that it should have. And you wonder if that's based on like a Steam algorithm, like how YouTube has a trending. Who decides who gets to see those games?
Right. I think most indie developers have to spend a lot of hours of thankless effort just doing it for the love of it for themselves.
Sure, and I bet both you and me have come to those occasions sometimes where we're like,
Oh yeah.
wait, wait, why are we doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's like there's enough 2D platformers out there.
Yeah.
I don't, but I'm passionate about what I do, and
Hmm.
I think you are too, and a lot of these people.
Hmm.
And it would be cool to talk to them about what made them so passionate about this.
Yeah, and personally, like, I'm really interested in the connection. I really want to meet more developers and collaborate and all that stuff. Um,
Right. Yeah.
but I'm just also so interested in hearing the story, like the path and the progression, and what does game development look like for other developers,
Hmm.
whether they're successful or not, just to compare and contrast with our own experiences and learn their lessons and just kind of like share the journey together.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I doubt myself. Like, am I doing this the right way? Like, do you ever feel that?
Right. Oh yeah. All the time.
Okay, good.
I mean, I know when you say doubts, like I don't doubt for a second that this is what I want to do,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as how how rewarding will all this effort be in the end, like I have to look for the reward in the process itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
just especially like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
But the I don't know, the people I've been following, like that's the other thing, everybody's so supportive, and it's really encouraging and inspiring.
Do you have any names you can drop? Any games or developers that you've been following?
Uh, yeah, sure. So there's one. Again, see, like I can't even name the developer right now, but this guy working on maybe a team working on a game called Codename Mallow, which is like you're like a ninja marshmallow.
I love that.
Yeah, there was another guy. I actually met this guy at EGLX a couple of years ago. He's
Okay.
working on, I want to say it's called Hellbound Awakening.
Okay.
It's like a top-down kind of a Diablo perspective, but more action-oriented with a lot of like violence and heavy metal in it, and it was really
Nice.
cool.
It's my style.
And yeah, I'm finding that a lot of these developers are very supportive. Like you upload your screenshots, right? They'll like them, they'll retweet them, and you do the same for them, and it's all like very uplifting, just mutually uplifting, which is
Hmm.
really cool, especially for a platform like Twitter where you have other communities who are nothing but infighting, right?
Yeah. I mean, that would be an amazing byproduct of doing this podcast is to kind of get myself, because I don't really feel like I'm part of any game community.
Hmm.
And I mean, I've also made like zero effort to do that. So
Right.
I feel like I don't even know where to start. But this would be a great chance to meet some people and to see what's inside that community.
Hmm.
Do you feel like you're part of some kind of community?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like that's the thing. I can't really put a name or a voice to a lot of these people, but yeah, everybody's very active and participating, and there are actual active initiatives to help indie developers promote their stuff,
Nice.
like pages that exist specifically to be like, hey, everybody, share your screenshots here, and we'll feature one of them next week. That kind of thing.
That's so cool. I should get into that.
You should honestly. Um, yeah, I got. Yeah, it was just an attempt to kind of put my name out there a little bit. Because one of the things I don't know. I mean, what kinds of you listen to podcasts a lot?
I'm not a podcast junkie.
Mm. Yeah. See, usually like when I'm getting busy work done, I'll put on like GDC talks and things like that.
Okay.
So just to, educate myself and learn something. And I don't know, I was just watching one guy who had a hit of a game that he didn't expect to have, called The First Tree. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or played it.
No.
It's pretty cool. It's like you play as a fox, and it's a bit of like a walking simulator.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, and like one of the things is like, okay, like just every Saturday post a screenshot for Screenshot Saturday, and
Right.
and I thought it was like, okay, well that doesn't sound too hard, so I started doing that, and
Yeah, and now you're like getting all the likes.
yeah, and I mean, I get occasionally, featured on some of these pages. It's really cool, and
That's awesome.
it is a really cool community. But I would like to get to know these guys better. So,
So, our podcast, do you think that people are not game devs would enjoy listening to it?
well, I think so because I mean, for me personally, even as the thing that made me want to make games is that I liked watching all the little, featurettes like in video games,
Hmm.
like little behind the scenes looks into the studios and the people who made them. Like I've always loved that stuff, and
Okay.
I like hearing about the process, like the creative process.
Yeah.
So I guess that that it takes a certain kind of person to be into that sort of thing, but yeah, as a I think as there are game players out there who want to get a peek behind the curtain, and I think.
Yeah, I think it could be really eye-opening just to know, first of all, how much goes into even the smallest game.
Mhm.
Just to see, I talk I talk a lot about struggles, it seems.
Yeah.
But just to see the struggles that we go through, but also the rewards.
Hmm.
What does a reward look like for indie game dev? Personally, I don't even know yet.
Yeah.
Is it people playing or is it making that money?
And I think it's different for every person, and it would be uh, there are people out there who are hustling hard and they get successful crowdfunding campaigns, and they're uh, all about that. There are some people who just don't care, and they're like, yeah, I just do it for fun, and it's out there.
I also wonder, do we set some kind of criteria as an indie game dev? Because I'm really into this game called Risk of Rain 2. It's, a roguelike game on Steam, and it's classified as indie,
Right.
but when I beat it, the credits went on for like 15 minutes. So
So,
I'm
but
like,
was that just backers, or because I know a lot of crowdfunding campaigns, they give all their backers the like proper thank you and
maybe. I don't want to be wrong, but I'm positive it was developers. And then it was like 5 different studios and all of their employees.
I see.
So how do we define indie game dev?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, right? Because like one person with enough ambition could, if they get enough, let's say they run a crowdfunding campaign and then they get, you know, uh, like five or whatever, 1,000% of their goal. Maybe suddenly they're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to outsource some
Yeah.
of this stuff to other companies because I can afford to do that now.
Hmm.
So that doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily throw them into the AAA category. But yeah, my ambitions for this podcast were about, you know, giving more of a voice to people who maybe could use, a little more exposure.
Yeah, and I think we're both aligned with that, so that's great. And so do we have any people lined up that we can talk about?
I don't want to be making official announcements and name dropping, but I have one person who's a good friend of mine in mind for our next episode, and I'll pretty much. As soon as this is recorded and it's a little more set in stone, I'm going to put the word out and talk to a few of the people who I'm a little more in contact with and see if they're interested.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'm definitely going to do the same. Might be kind of weird for me to like just jump into the community and be like, "Hey, who wants to be on my
Right.
podcast?"
Yeah.
I'm a nobody,
Yeah,
but
but that is what it is. But like, it's a chance. You tell a person, "Hey, you want to come and talk about your game and what you're doing?"
yeah, that's true. Like, who doesn't want to talk about their game dev and their game project? So, we've covered who we are, what we're doing, what our podcast is about. I think we've got time for one more subject. Is there anything else on your mind?
Um. Well, how about where are you coming from as a fan of video games in general? What kind of stuff did you grow up on, and what inspired you to get into game development in the first place?
Well, I think the first game I ever played was Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on the NES.
Mm.
My friend around the corner used to have it, so I had, any chance I could get, I would run to his house just to go play it. The first console we had was actually a Game Boy,
Okay.
and I remember we'd all wake up as early as possible just to get our hands on it. And then N64, GoldenEye, and eventually Smash Brothers.
Right.
And I think the passion had already started from there. In terms of game dev, I'm really like a do-it-yourself person. So like my wife wants a bench for outside. We're not buying that bench. I'm gonna try and make that bench. And
That sounds like something I would do. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, like that's just kind of people we are. We like to build things, and why not like build the thing that you love the most, which is playing games.
And what what would you say uh, first gave you that light bulb moment where where you decided you wanted to make games?
You know what? It was a television commercial for a certain school called IADT. I had no idea that I could make games.
Hmm.
I just knew that, high school was almost over and I was expected to choose the rest of my life. And I didn't really,
Yeah.
want to go to university and just get a nothing degree about something I didn't care about.
Hmm.
So I was like, hey, put me in video game design school. Like, that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your story?
Uh, yeah. Well, okay. So I grew up in Ukraine when I was little, and right after Soviet Union fell apart, suddenly there was like this belated but very rapid influx of all the things that we missed out on in the 80s. So, so I was the first kid ever, like, of anybody I knew that had an Atari 2600.
Ah,
But then a year later, everybody had a Famicom,
okay.
And then when I got one, like, not, a year later, everybody's talking about the Sega Genesis. So like it all came very rapidly at me.
Mm.
But it was everywhere, and yeah, I would spend hours and hours just playing Double Dragon and
Nice.
Mortal Kombat and stuff like that.
Classics.
And then when I came here and to Canada, and there was the 32 64-bit generation with the 3D games and the polygons, and just blew me away.
Nice.
Um, but as far as making games, it was funny actually because I would tinker with RPG Maker since like the 8th grade,
Mm.
just for fun. It was super user friendly, and I would try to like find some ripped sprites from all these SNES RPGs and just tinker with it. Like no no a design document or anything. It was just like here's a town, here are people in a town, and then here's a forest and some monsters. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. But and I was in the same as place where you were. After high school, it's like I don't really know what I want to do. Like, how do you expect me to choose? And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. I was watching a little behind the scenes documentary of Mortal Kombat, um, Deadly Alliance, I think it was, and it was just like a tour of the studio.
Okay.
And Ed Boon would like go into all these rooms. He'd go into one room and there would be a 3D modeler making 3D models. He'd go in another room, there would be an animator doing their thing, and I'd be like, that is so cool. I want to be in that environment.
Mm.
This was back when Mortal Kombat had like 50 people there. Not
Mm-hmm.
not today where it's like
A lot.
hundreds.
Yeah.
But so that was like, okay, you know what? That's what I want to do.
And how did you end up hearing about our infamous school, IADT?
Probably through Electric Playground. Yeah, they would be sponsored, so I would see ads for IADT at the end of every episode, and I was like, well, I have family in Toronto. I'm gonna move there and stay with my family without asking them.
That works.
It's just like, yeah, they're not gonna say no.
No, they gotta support you.
All right, so I think that's good for our first episode. We got to tell people a little bit about who we are and where we come from, and really hoping to get to know a lot of other developers as future episodes get made.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really fun. I think it's going to give everyone a perspective on how game design works. And I think we're going to all learn about a lot of cool games that we may have never heard of otherwise.
Yeah.
So thank you, Eric, for starting this and for thinking of me. And I think this is going to be a really great podcast.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to keeping it going. All right. Thank you, everybody. My name is Eric,
And my name's Anthony.
and we'll see you later.